Okay, Wendy, let's go.
Okay, roll call. Charles Shoemaker.
Here.
Geneva Gaines.
Here.
Rebecca Boland.
Here.
Sandra Flowers.
Present.
Robert Larry. Thomas Phelan. Absent. Dr. Robert Powell.
Here.
Pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have several deaths. First is Diane Downey of Newport, passed away on Wednesday, November 27th. She was employed by General Electric in Sig's Market until retirement. Mrs. Downey leaves behind her daughter, Mary Beth Vieira, Rogers High School resource teacher. The second is Constance Barbara Watts of Newport, passed away Wednesday, November 27th, same day, at Newport Hospital. Mrs. Watts managed the Robert Potter League of Animals for over 17 years, dictating her life to the cause of animals. She is survived by her son, Jeffrey Watts, first shift at Rogers High School custodian. The final one is Paul Schultz of Portsmouth, passed away on Monday, December 2nd. In 1942, Mr. Schultz served in World War II in the U.S. Army, returned to Newport as a well-respected gunsmith, opening a shop and performed as a master carpenter for the Hammersmith Farm. Eisenhower in three places: Hammersmith Farm, Eisenhower House, and Clarendon Court. Mr. Schultz leaves behind his daughter, Maria Schultz, who retires with his son in school. Ask for a moment of silence. Thank you. Anybody here wish to make a public comment? This is your chance. No? Okay. All right. We'll move on to resolutions and certificates of achievement. I don't see any pending. Student council update, Allison.
Hi everyone, my name is Allison again. Today I was asked to read my farewell to Dr. Ambrosi that I wrote for his party/dinner thing. So this is it. This is a farewell from the kids who consistently thought about what their time in Rogers High School would consist of. With the dreams of Friday night football, the friendships, and the countless memories, also came the never-ending promises to our parents that if they listened just one more time, they would never, ever have to hear us recite yet another sonnet. This is from the students who, although moan and groan about wanting to stay in bed, especially on those awfully warm January mornings, really are thankful for the education provided to them. We enter that same building every day not knowing what will occur, but if one thing stays constant, it is the direction and leadership of our superintendent, Dr. Ambrosi. We recognize his work and efforts each day through the teachers who stay after with us much longer than they are entitled to. We see it in the new Pell School that our younger siblings physically cannot stop talking about, even if they tried. We notice it in the dedicated faculty and staff that make up Newport Public Schools. In usual teenager fashion, we have excellent ways of masking our appreciation, but we truly are lucky to be under your guidance these past 8.5 years. A personal thank you to the determined man who played an integral role in the amazing high school experience I've had. And on behalf of Rogers, we wish you all the best during retirement. You deserve it. Sincerely, Allison Thompson.
Thank you, Allison.
They're applauding for that or for Bobby Leary just coming in. I don't know which it is. Hi, Bob.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
And that's all I have today.
Thank you very much. Bob, are you ready for the consent calendar?
I'm ready. Let's roll.
Anything you wish, anybody want to retract anything from the consent calendar? No. Okay, let's take the motion to approve.
I move to approve consent agenda.
Second.
Right now, anybody wishes to extract? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Now we jump down to action items, which is first to talk about policy change. Dr. Flowers?
Just a second, please. The first one, I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong one here, is the waiver for the state assessment graduation, and we had adopted it as at the first reading in November. And we recall that the policy language developed by the Rhode Island Department of Education, it meets all the legal requirements. If there is a request from a student or a parent of a particular student who wishes to request the waiver of the state requirements.
I move adoption.
Second.
Further discussion on the item? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
May I make a comment?
Yes.
Request of Dr. Ruby. Apparently, the department isn't aware of the districts that have adopted this. They didn't, no big deal was made of it. But Barrington is offering their policy as an example for the other districts. And being a little bit jealous, may I ask that you submit our adopted policy as well? Okay. So Barrington doesn't get all the glory.
There you go.
Okay, the second item under action is authorize implementation and funding of Rogers High School wireless internet communication plan. Dr. Ambrose?
Yes, this is really great news for the district. As you know, several years ago, former tech director Lee Rabbit applied for E-rate funding for the school department. We received the grant award for all of the elementary schools, the middle school and high school. The high school's dollar amount to implement the grant was 40% of the cost of the entire implementation, which was a sizable chunk of change. As a result of that, we waited until we were able to discuss the possibility with the Rhode Island Department of Education that they would contribute their funds from the bond referendum that was recently passed for connections in the state of Rhode Island and schools. Today I have Mr. Osiris Gonzalez, who is our tech director, who's been working very diligently with the folks at RIDE. We've had several meetings with them. We've tried to explain to them how important this is to Newport and how this will make us one of the first few districts that'll be totally wireless. Osiris, do you want to come up and just talk briefly about the process and get some FaceTime here, guys?
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to discuss this. This is exciting news, and we're looking forward to having this done. What would happen is, upon your approval, we would then start the process, hopefully, over the Christmas break, to have the the wires actually pulled from Rogers High School and start putting in the new wiring. That's important because we would have a good 5 to 10 days of uninterrupted work getting done. And that's crucial. Once that backbone has been implemented, then we can go ahead and continue with the work and possibly be done with the whole project before the beginning of the summer. So I think that would be ideal if we can get this approval from the board.
Thank you. And as you can see by my memo, the total cost for the project was $745,068. Of that total cost, the local obligation from the Newport Public Schools is only $26,231, and I think we managed to negotiate an excellent package with the E-rate folks and with RIDE. And believe me, it was not easy. Osiris and I were back and forth, walking through Rogers, talking about where the drop points were. So again, kudos to Mr. Gonzalez for shepherding this across the finish line. and I would recommend that the school committee authorize us to proceed in this very cost-efficient and very positive instructional opportunity for our Rogers kids.
Mrs. Gaines?
Excellent, excellent work, and I fully support it. But I do have a question. When you pull the wires that are presently being used, and during the transition, will there be access to the internet at Rogers?
Well, during the time where the school is closed, the idea is to have 2 concurrent networks at the same time. So the way things would work as far as a project management standpoint, they begin the new run and implement new switches and new servers. Now, obviously, I'm being very general. You having 2 networks run at the same time so that there is no loss of service.
Okay.
And then once the test has been done and our new network is up and running, all of the bandwidth tests have been confirmed, then we can start pulling the old wire.
Okay.
But it will not interfere with the current operations here at Rogers or in the NATAC building.
Great.
Motion? Yes.
I have 2 questions. First one, how much of Rogers will have internet access? Is this the entire building? Will be, okay, so every place you can get internet access from in the building?
You will have access to the internet through either some form of the wireless, which is much better than what we have now, or the Ethernet that you can plug into the walls.
Okay, and then my next question is, like, how will this affect students who bring devices to school? Have we come up with a policy on that yet?
Well, as you may know, there is a standard called BYOD, bring your own device. And so right now we're working on those policies in order to make sure that any new devices coming in are going to be sheltered until they've passed some type of quarantine from our services. We don't want machines just coming in off the street and potentially being virus-laden. So I would say that that policy is coming, but we can't implement a policy until our infrastructure has been updated.
Right, so at this point, though, like, kids won't be able to come in and just connect their cell phone to the internet.
Well, they can.
They can, but
They can, but the idea is once the infrastructure has been put in place, then the policy has been enforced.
I'll entertain a motion first, and then we'll talk.
So moved.
Second. Okay, any further discussion on it? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
This is a big deal. It really is. I don't know if everyone understands the implication of this. I mean, the totally wireless school department and at very little cost ultimately to the taxpayers in the city. Thank you.
Okay, going to item 7, discussion items. First is Pell School technology update.
Could we switch this so Jim Farrar can give his presentation and go, Jimmy, I don't want to keep you here. I appreciate you. He was all set for Tuesday night, and then we moved it around. I know he probably has to get back to work and work on the fire department in Middletown, right? So can we do the Pell update and then flip it back to the technology?
Amend the agenda.
Sure, go ahead.
I move that we amend the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Joe, you're on.
Good.
Okay, well, first of all, I'll just tell you about the activity that's been taking place. Contractors have been doing a good job at chipping away at commissioning, the final commissioning of the building, as well as punch list items. So that's something that goes on for a while after a project of this size is completed. And obviously, it's important to take the time, especially with the seasonal change that we have. So this is a big opportunity for us to go through a lot of checks and balances that we're not able to do during the months of the summer. So all of that work has been going along well. And that activity, there'll be some definite increase in that activity, which will be planned for during the Christmas break. So all in all, We've been very happy with the progress out there and the status of punch list items. So the requisition, we just processed the requisition the other day. I dropped it off to Dr. Ambrosi's
Saw it this
office. That still has a retainage in there, just over, it's almost $380,000. So that's still, it's a substantial amount of money still to be holding after you pay this month's rent. Right now, you have about just over $800,000 there. So from a punch list standpoint, pleased with progress. We're processing along not only punch list items, but probably what are considered wish list items. Everything goes through the architect, comes back through the school department. So that progress has been moving along well. On the financial side, the project's in great shape financially. We again take the opportunity of time after requisitions are processed, after the completion of the school, after it's occupied, and we like to make sure that everything has the time, the advantage of time to be able to filter through. So that's outstanding invoices that's out there. That's also for things that you may want to have completed that weren't part of the contract. So all of that is taking shape. So we prepare, some pretty detailed cost reports on the project, and we break it down where we are tracking the contractor's cost of the general construction. That includes the work that was done prior to Bacon construction. That includes the Sullivan School demolition, the reconstruction of the street out there, which the city is funding. So we've captured all of that work, and then we've captured all of the soft cost, which are the engineering and architectural fees, the project management fees, the fixtures, furniture, and equipment cost. So the bottom line is we're all tracking to the $30 million project cost. So with that, we right now are showing an adjusted remaining contingency of just over $384,000. Now again, this report, I think Dr. Ambrosi and I went over this probably a couple of weeks ago, and this report should be reconciled at some point to the city accounting systems and just make sure that there's nothing else out there. But our reports basically capture the complete project cost, and again, we obviously have the hard evidence of that on all the construction costs that go through, all of our cost, all of the engineering and architectural fees, and fixtures, furniture, and equipment. So we're pretty solid with it. So again, to be where we are at this point, the story doesn't get any better than that. That's a substantial amount of money to have, to consider to be under budget with. And again, what's going to happen now is we will complete the punch list. We'll go through the adjusting of mechanical systems that needs to take place during the colder weather. We've been actually out there this week, and again, just adjusting mechanicals, having the building rebalanced again on the mechanical end, and that's what's going to continue. So we'll have month of December, we'll pick up with activity for the vacation period, and we'll see where we are in January. Yes.
Now that we've had a couple of substantial rainfalls, has the problem with our neighbor been resolved?
Yeah, it looks great back there. It really does. A lot of good improvements were made back there. We haven't had any complaints. Of course, we still have not incurred the substantial, 200-year storms that we had earlier. But all in all, it really does. It really looks great.
Jim, do you anticipate another building committee meeting for all the parties?
I don't think necessarily a building committee meeting.
No, I mean the builders.
Oh, yes, no,
Small.
yes. No, that will definitely happen. Yes, amongst the construction architectural team, our team, yeah.
If you recall, when we were talking about lighting, we had a conversation about lighting in the back of the building and how that might disturb the neighbors.
Right,
Well, now they would like to have a light.
right.
Yeah.
So I told them the next time we met, I would bring it up, and that it was my fault that we didn't have it.
Right.
Because I said...
They didn't,
Yeah, no, it's...
No, not the neighbors on the
the other side of the street,
parking lot.
the one behind.
The one
Yeah,
behind.
okay.
Apparently, Mr. Roderick's discovered someone hanging around
Right.
after dark. He called the police, but he said, I think we do need that light, so...
Oh, and I think, again, that's what I said, it's important that we have the punch list items, and then we have kind of the wish list items. Those are items for the school committee to look at and decide whether or not, such as
Yeah.
lighting. Any issues that come up that are improvements to the project that you may consider that while the project's open and you have monies available, you may decide to apply to do some of that work.
I guess we'll see again.
Dr. Schmidt?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'd just like to say that, and I've watched some other projects in Newport. I think that, picking the right architect, which I think the school committee did, and picking the right project manager, that's where that number comes in on the money. Because I know there's been some other projects in Newport where the architects didn't draw very good plans and things didn't get managed, and they had lots of financial problems. And I think that, 2 times this architectural firm and Jim's firm have run the project, and 2 times it's come in on schedule, under budget. So I thank you personally, as a taxpayer in Newport. I thank you for being here and stepping up to the plate, and and I'm just pleased that it came out like this.
And
Well, thank you.
I concur, and let me segue into something, because Jim and I have spoken about it before, but I'm not going to be here to make the recommendation. Jim and his firm have far exceeded the original contract by at least 2 months and maybe more. So he had asked if I would recommend a $15,000 additional to the contract, and I would do that. My problem is I didn't have time to make that recommendation. So,
Yeah, that-
I mean, seriously, it was supposed to be done in October. It's been beyond that, and you've just done a marvelous job.
No, I appreciate that. The 15,000 that Dr. Ambrosi is talking about, we asked for a request, probably a month ago, that I just put that in, and that was basically for the allocation of time that we had. We ramped up pretty heavy for a June 30th substantial completion date. That was a, substantial effort, and that left us a little short on hours that we felt would throttle back after June 30th, but obviously there's a short window of time between June 30th and the end of August when school has to open, so there was no throttling back. So anyways, that was a request for about, I think it broke out to maybe $7,900 for July and August. That money is included in that budget that I gave you. So I just put that in there because, again, when we're preparing budgets, when I say the $385,000, that number is accounted for in there. So we have And I'm not doing that because I'm saying that it was a given. I'm doing that because we need to cover potential costs when we provide a number. So that cost is in there. On a contractual basis, our services ended by contract on October 15th. Or October,
Right.
I think it was the 15th of October.
And it's 2 months later, and you're still here.
Was still, going out there, and again, I was there this week and spent a few hours out there on site, so it's all good.
We'll get a memo from the superintendent at the next meeting, okay, then I guess, is that the procedure?
We have to do something with regard to that because it's beyond the original.
Right.
But we can't do it tonight.
Right, yeah.
John, Bob?
So, Mr. Chairman, I have a couple questions.
Yep.
Supposedly it was 900 things on the punch list items, am I correct?
I don't know about 900. Typically, I think there were probably, when we started, maybe around 800.
Okay, so we constantly get emails from the gym teachers.
No, I was actually out with the gym teachers, I believe it was yesterday, and and I happen to know all of them, so of course they came right up to me, and we had a good discussion, and then I said, well, why don't you send your email over to me? So the bottom line is that they have a few items on there which are punch list items, and then there are several items on there which are wish list items. So again, what happens is that we vet that through, and I said, you know what we'll do? We'll have those items send them up to the architect, and they can make a recommendation back to the school committee whether or not they think you should, spend some money on something like that. But they're all relatively pretty basic items.
So Paul, you received the memo from Paul on that?
Paul's
Yeah, you
answered
did
all of
an
it.
email today.
I see it.
Yeah.
Well,
It's right over
I'm
there.
sure I got it. See it.
Yeah, so Paul and I were out
It's right here.
a couple
With the
weeks ago,
answers.
looking at it, and then we've gone back to the architects and talked with the principals there. And there are some things we can do and we think we should do. There are other things which are significant cost factors.
There's one other thing. When we had the problem with the seagulls, we found an expert that took care of it. And I'm wondering if that same expert can take care of the geese.
Yes, we noticed that.
Can you run over some geese,
They're a
Osiris?
big problem. You might have
Osiris
to-
ran over a seagull, and we never saw
And
another
they all
seagull.
disappeared.
You might have to put some decoys out there.
I suggested those coyotes that
Yeah.
move
Yeah,
around.
well,
Paul
sometimes-
says they don't work.
No, because they don't know it's fake. You don't want real ones. And
You have to bring a dog out there and a starter gun. That's what
He's
they do out
looked
of
at that
Guantanamo.
already.
Gun.
Invite
Yeah.
people to walk their
Yeah.
dogs.
I don't want to interrupt Jim, but I've actually spent a couple hours today on the top floor, about 20 minutes with a representative from the Navy base.
Yeah.
This is all suggested, and it's an expensive proposition to the services that have that problem done.
So go in and see
Send
them.
me some info, perhaps there could be some great opportunities for something like that. But,
The people that do my landscaping, I was out there one day and I kept hearing this bang, like a gunshot. And they had some kind of machine in the field that the gun shop, he said that's to keep the geese from its corn.
kick it all around, we kick it around in Scottsville. The city has interviewed people, and they can keep up with the cost. The cutouts, unfortunately, they don't give off the scent. They don't have the predator eyes on the expert on that. So, you actually need
Yeah,
a
yeah.
border collie. Border collie resembles the Arctic fox. I'm very up on this.
You never thought you'd be doing this, did you, Paul? Be honest here.
It's something that, as research the law, somebody suggested Mylar tape, very shiny tape, which you have all
Ah.
over the fields.
Great.
Then you have the pro geese people
But
coming out.
it is a nuisance. And poor people at the base are in fear that their program is very successful. And in fear that it's going to end as a result of some equipment problems that are going to happen.
think we ought to invest in Osiris.
Yeah, maybe the Nargis will go back to the Navy, which is why we have them.
Mr. Chairman, if I can finish my
Have a
questions.
collaboration with the Navy.
If I can finish my questions. So could we look at that list of 800?
You
Yeah,
got it.
yeah, it's probably down to around 200 at this
Okay.
point.
But-
And
but
Bob, you
yeah,
have to, when you look at a list like that, that number sounds like a big number.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about very, very superficial items like, tags here, that this wall, you need to touch that up. And, when you've got a 100,000 square foot school, you can find 800 touch-up spots.
Hundreds of them were the floor tiles itself.
Floor tiles.
I mean, like
Floor
hundreds of them.
tiles,
So
you know,
it
that,
sounded like a lot more
Right, it's.
because he counted everything.
Right.
So my concern is two things, and I want you as an owner's rep to be a public record for this. The floor, the gym is a concave. Is that structural, or is that just, or what?
Yeah,
That's the first part, like a part of it could be coming up.
That's answered in the list
You
that
mentioned
we got
something
today.
here, yeah.
The answer to Part A is that we've looked at the floor, and we're talking about a,
Yeah.
4x4 area,
Right.
which is off of
I see
the
it.
court, and it's by a door, and you have to go out of your way to look. We had 5 of us out there yesterday, and every one of us was like this, looking, saying, "Can you show me where that is?" We have levels on the floor. So the bottom line is we have it there, and we had the sports floor people with us in that meeting. And that's one of the punch list items which will be done over Christmas. And basically all it is we're taking that area, you sand the top surface of the floor, and they level that with like a urethane, the same product, all the same products that you make the floor with, and then put that top coating back on. The top coating's about an 1/8 inch thick. So it's very, very subtle. It's nothing. It's nothing major. It's nothing structural.
Is it going to look more obvious now that we're doing something with it?
Well, yeah, it will.
I mean,
only,
seriously.
it will.
I mean, if there was no safety issue before,
That's, yeah.
If it comes, again, like I said, I'm
like, what?
it's,
Why are we-
when you look at the use of it,
You couldn't see it.
it's,
You could not see it.
you have to
You
really
know that.
question it.
Well, but you will be able to see it now when they redo it. That's my concern.
So the only thing we were going to do there was that because it's fairly new, the color differential shouldn't be too much, but obviously, you've had a lot of
In 50 years.
A lot of wear out there
Okay.
on that floor, a lot of dirt. So it'll stand out a little. So
Put the initials in, Jeff?
what we thought about doing is just accenting that piece off with 2 lines coming off the court, just running them to the wall, and that way it'll look like it's
That's fine.
natural, meant to be.
Like the second part, you walk into the cafeteria, and you walk to the wall to the gym, and there's a hump in the wall, a hump in the floor goes right across over to right to the cafeteria.
Yeah.
A little bump. Have you seen that?
Now,
And the only reason I say these because people say to me
Yeah.
that if this is a structural concern,
Yeah.
and that cement
Oh, yeah.
is cracking underneath there, and 10 years from now, you're gonna dig this up. He said, good luck with the money. So I mean, I just wanna get, as not being professional, I want owner's rep to say, oh, it's nothing, it's no big deal. So when the taxpayer says to me 10 years from now,
Yeah.
you know,
Then you can say I've got him on tape, right?
that's correct.
so the only thing is your description, Bob. Your description. A hump.
Yeah.
Okay?
A little bump.
That again is something that you have VCT flooring, vinyl composition flooring over that entire floor, right? There's no breaking of tile. So when we go down like this, we see that little ripple, not a hump,
Yeah.
a ripple.
Right.
Okay?
I would
And
agree
it
with
goes,
that.
and it,
About
and
30
it
feet long.
goes across. So we believe that is right on a control joint within the floor. All the concrete slabs are all cut, okay? They're all saw-cut joints that go across. So that is most probably at a control joint where right there, that's where you want movement within your floor. Obviously, again, it is a very, very subtle because there's no hump and there's no breaking of the tile. So during the and the only time that you see that, and the only time that it was saw, was when the tables were completely removed and you went out there and buffed the floor up. So again, during the Christmas break, we're going to pull a couple of those tile up and take a look at it. And again, just going back to what I said earlier, is you want to be able to go through these colder winter months. Everything has to move, right? Concrete has to move. Everything has to move a little. So, you know, you definitely, no matter what you build, everything has to move. And that's why you have control joints in there, because you want
So you won't have cracking then?
you want to have the opportunity for it to expand and contract. So it's all good.
Dr. Flowers?
Yeah, I think the only real concern I have is anything to do with the children's safety. And I'll be honest, I should have gone over there once a week, but these water fountains.
That's a problem.
That is a real problem.
That is a problem.
That's in the gym, that's on the, but that's per design.
But I was gonna say, that never was looked at by the manufacturers originally, or
It was
just something that happened?
You know what, we went there, we saw Paul, and I said, why? I mean, you know, seriously, it was not a good design for where it was. I don't think it's a good design at all for little kids.
Right.
So we've asked them to take a look at it. I don't know where we are on that, Paul, but that was asked to be looked at a while ago.
Is it like you can put a little
Possibly,
recess?
but
Okay.
I was wondering
But
whether or not
that's
you
got,
even need
that's,
them.
Sandra, that's got to be key.
know?
You got to change that.
That to me, I think that should, I'm
Yeah.
sure you have to prioritize things.
Right.
Student safety first and the aesthetics,
Right.
extra chairs. or
Saw
something.
3 out of 800. I'll keep going. Any other, yes, Mrs. Gold.
Yeah, that was what I was gonna bring up, was the safety issue. I think that now that safety issues have been brought to our attention, then it's imperative that we get on them immediately, because if there were any kind of a, collision, and make the decision about the ones outside on the, the basketball court too, putting those I mean, I don't know that they're necessary, but I'm just saying, whatever it is, that once it's been brought to our attention, it's imperative that we get on it and take care of it so that there's no lawsuits. Because once again, that's on tape too.
I did check with the city of Newport on that, their experts, Scott Miller and Karen, and they did point out to me that those poles coming down.
So far.
Are recessed back about 5 feet on purpose.
Yeah.
to Prevent a child who's coming in the way of basketball and hitting it. So, they're the only padding of any kind on any post in the city, rec facilities, is on an old post at Turner Field. And we'll take them all back to the game. So they're just, something that they think could be a vandalized item.
That one didn't make any sense. And we looked at all of the concerns that they had, and it's taken a while because we had to go back to HMFH, we had to take a look at what was reasonable and what wasn't reasonable, but you've got that in your packet, or you saw it today, and it's interesting because if you look a year ago at the gym class in Cranston Calvert being taken in the cafeteria, or the auditorium rather, and Underwood in the cafeteria, and Cogshaw on the 3rd floor where some of the kids couldn't even go to have phys ed. Certainly a whole lot better than the gym teachers ever thought they'd have. Just saying.
So was that recessed bubbler part of the HMF architect thing, and they came out, or was it always scheduled to be sticking out the bubbles?
Yeah, they're as designed. They're
They
installed
designed to be
as-
out?
Yeah.
Okay.
They designed it
So the
that way.
cost
When we saw it,
Yeah.
we said, no, that's inappropriate.
It didn't look the same on paper as it did when it was there. Certainly jumped out at you.
Okay, further discussion? If If not, I will move on.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
All right, thank you.
We are working with the with the principals on issues that teachers may or may not have with regard to their needs. But again, some of these things are wish lists. I mean, people want things that are going to cost $30,000 because they want a projector, or some of these things are
Their
just
own private phone.
unreasonable. We'll give teachers the tools that they need to do their job, and we will give kids an environment that's safe for them. And those are the two things that I think we need to do.
So we get a copy of that list of that 800 things, or 200 things now, 200 now?
I'll see what it is, but, quite honestly, it's a shame that anybody first said 800 or 900, because you would never know that there were that many. And then when I asked about it, it was like, it's mostly tile or,
Punch lists are starting to be prepared. You're preparing these punch lists before people move into the building. So this is during the whole, move situations going and everything. And again, when you're at that point, we have every little, so many of them, in most punch lists, you would have 250 items that may be underneath one. All rooms require, a paint inspection. But instead, there's literally a tag throughout the
One of those
whole
blue
area.
markers.
Go and touch this wall up and this, and same thing on the floor. So many of those items pertain to touching up walls for painting, floor tiles, replace a floor tile.
I think the big items, Bobby. I mean, we
Yeah,
talked
I would
about-
like to see that list, though, as a member of the board of directors. I would like to see what's on that list. And I don't want to be shocked at it 10 years from now.
The one that's remaining now. So I guess
Yeah,
we'll talk.
200's left.
We'll talk to Dan. Dan is doing that now,
Yes.
and he'll get us that information.
I just remembered, two things actually, but one for Jim. I noticed there was a problem in the bathrooms, that the kids can't push those doors open, they're too heavy. Anybody made you aware of that issue?
There's been a few items with some more hardware adjustments.
Yeah, that's-
Is that what they did, they adjusted?
Yeah, I think there was an adjustment in our, we were made aware of that, and HMFH was coming back.
Has sent their architect
Yeah.
down
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we were aware of it as soon as we found out, because one of the teachers came to me while I was walking by and says, hey, listen, the kids can't open the bathroom door. I said, well, that's not good. So right away, we got HMFH to come in and look at it. That we thought they had fixed it, but evidently they needed to do some more work on it. Yeah. Second floor.
You have a second question?
I did, but it's not for Jim. It was concerning, I guess, it comes under Pell School, the update, before we go up to a different subject, right? So, my question was, I know that we were given information that we took money, that we were gonna take technology money out of the contingent, was it the contingency fund, or the 100,000 was gonna come out of, for technology?
Did.
Okay, my question is, couldn't we have taken that out of the 384 contingency fund and left that 100,000 in?
Because we don't know that is actually what it's going to be, okay? And we were told by the powers that be to use that from those funds, and we needed to do it relatively quickly, and here's why. Today, I assume that you've seen the check that we got from the Van Buren Charitable Trust. This was essentially a matching fund for us. So we had to order $100,000 worth of computer stuff in order to access this. So it's basically a buy one, get one free. And thanks to the Van Buren Charitable Trust, we did that. I still think it's amazing that people who aren't involved in day-to-day operations with finances are able to weigh in and make comments about something for which they really don't understand the implications. So, we're all good with this. Right now, we have remaining perhaps, and I say perhaps because Joan and I have been trying to get together with the city, and we haven't been able to do that. Once we get together with the city to find out what they have assigned to the project, and we coordinate that with what Jim has provided, then we'll have a better idea as to where we are financially for this project. But certainly, I wouldn't touch anything more at this point in time unless and until we're sure. We still have costs out there for the furniture, hasn't been completely paid for, and we have some other change orders that may be coming. So I would not touch any of that money. We've got $30 million, and we have $384. So 84,000, yeah. So all of that money is available to the project. To refresh everyone's recollection, $419,000 was always included in the $30 million. Everyone remembers that, I'm sure, right? Mm-hmm. The budget was always that. So that's what we had for the whole budget, okay? Mm-hmm. Right now, we're not sure where we are going to end up. I really wanted to finish this on my watch, and I tried very hard to do that. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. But we need to make sure that we do have enough money to finish the project, and that's the direction that I would suggest we continue to go on. And we've been working with the city.
And if I might, the $30 million bond was for the building itself and not for
the laptops and the other types of things.
No, we had said that if there was money left over after everything is closed off with the building, then we could look at using the leftover
for types of things, yes.
you know,
Yeah, and we're
various
not,
and sundry things, but we
Right.
can't touch that money until the building is closed off.
and
Done.
that's my concern. The worst thing in the world is if you spend money now and you find you need it to finish the project up, right, Jim?
You got a problem.
You got your telephone.
Call Jim. Okay, thank you. Okay, thanks, Jimmy, appreciate it.
Dr.
Thank
Booth,
you.
you're on.
Dr. Booth, you're on. Pell Technology Update. There had been a question by someone in the community about how we're utilizing technology at Pell. And truth to tell,
We haven't trained our teachers to use it.
we have spent a lot of time, effort, and energy to bring the Pell School as probably the most state-of-the-art elementary school in Rhode Island. Okay, so.
Well, we said we got to redo it. So basically, the technology at Pell has pretty much been just what we said we were going to do. This is a picture of Lori DeLemos' first grade class, and these are all iPads.
I have a question for you. Can you come down here and can Marson do the clicking thing? Because I think that way, then you can show that and she can talk? Okay. That's right. That's why I'm still the superintendent. Okay.
It's trying to stay off TV, but that's all right. As you can see, they're used in a variety of ways. And the teachers, the technology that's being used at Pell, very much of it is being used at all Newport schools. And it starts out taking attendance. We use ASOP as our way for teachers to email their plans to subs. They record their absences. And then once they get to school, Student Information System, which is our Aspen system, is where they take attendance. They see all the student contact information, demographic information, medical alerts, any of that kind of information. And that's also where we do our report cards. At Pell, it's a standards-based report card, and they're generated right in Aspen. All those records are right there for the teachers to see. The technology for improving education is the system that we use for our special education information, the IEPs, functional behavioral assessments, and also the personal literacy plans. And then Pell being a PBIS, Positive Behavior Intervention and Support School, we also have what they call school-wide information system, which is where they keep track of all the behavior data. If there's an office referral, it's put into that system, and then they can track behavior concerns by the student, by the time of day, by the area where they're taking place, and that gives teachers just more information about what kind of adjustment they have to make to their teaching. They're reteaching the behaviors, the appropriate behaviors, or also for supervision as far as, if it's happening over at the playground, behind the slide, they'll have that information from the PBIS system. And this actually is a photo of how teachers take attendance and have students choose their lunch. So when students come in the morning, they click on their name and drag it into...
Dim the lights down, if you like.
Okay. It's not a great picture because it was... There you go. They take their name and they drag it to what their lunch choice is, home lunch first, second, and that information's right there. So, that's how it's done. Marcin? So as far as professional development goes, all teachers in the district are using RideMap, which has modules for professional development. We're using the teacher evaluation system, formative assessment, that's right up on the RIDE website. The educator performance support system, which is our teacher evaluation model, is all done online. Teachers set their professional growth plan. They upload evidence right into that system. They receive feedback from principals on observations. We also at Pell now are working with a data use team. They have been trained to look at a variety of data points and report to their staff, so that informs instruction. And that's, once again, they keep track of that electronically. Communication, all the schools have listservs. Pell now has their own emails. Teachers use emails to communicate with parents. We have on our website live binders, which is where as we are writing our curriculum and revising our curriculum, coming up with common assessments, that information is uploaded to a live binder that teachers have access, so they can look at, what does it look like for second grade math? I'm teaching third grade. What are they doing in fourth grade? And we also do a lot of surveying of teachers as far as what they need. We did one just a month ago about field trips. Now that we're located at Pell, a lot of those walking field trips have gone away, so we need to adjust what aligns to the curriculum by grade level as far as district field trips.
Question.
Yes.
Could we get the camera on the screen? So
I wanted that. Yeah, that was my idea.
Can't happen just because of...
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
It would
That's
just be
okay.
nice for the public, that's all.
Right.
Not that we don't want you, but...
That's okay. Also, one of the things that we're going to start, because as a lot of this technology has been introduced to the teachers, there's things they want workshops on. A little help with designing lessons for the smart boards, or our reading series actually has an online component that allows for student assessment. So after the holidays on Wednesdays, they're going to begin holding those various workshops after school. This was actually, professional development teachers were at, this is last Friday, on our new reading series. So they're being updated on the student component of it, each student logging in. There's games they can practice at home. There's, a lot of online information that teachers are beginning to be able to utilize. So as far as the assessments that we are doing that are also electronic and recorded are the PALS, the phonological awareness literacy screening in kindergarten and first grade. Ames Web is a way to progress monitor student achievement. It's quick, easily administered. They can do it every 2 weeks and record growth for students, and that's especially important for our response to intervention, that we have data to show what interventions are working. NWEA, as you know, is the adaptive assessment, Northwest Evaluation Association. That's given 3 times a year. Again, that shows growth, and it also has a way for teachers to look at individual student scores to see where the weaknesses are in each of the math or reading areas, so they can focus their instruction. Our state assessment, NECAP, they can also drill down into the RIDE data to see what is it in our curriculum. Very often, when we look at this as a district, we'll pull up one of the release items, and you can see in your class that 70% of the students got this one question wrong. They all answered A. Why didn't they pick C? Yes?
Jane? I understand NECAP's given in October. As far as what I've been able to, the earliest I've ever seen the results is like March. Does the teacher say in December have any idea what happened in October this year?
Well, NECAP, remember, tests the year before. So we see it in pretty much January, the information released to us. But when we look down at a question like that, we're looking at, say it's a graphing question, and students have all put the answer C, and the teachers look at the question saying, well, I know why they put C, because when we're teaching it, we're not specifically asking them for this information. So,
But that occurs in January, February?
and it informs our instruction for the next year. So, there's many things
That's
that,
the thing I find very
well,
poor
we would
about
love
the
we would
NECAP.
love it sooner. And that's only one measure. Believe me,
That's why we have the NWEA.
right, we have a variety of assessments that help inform that instruction.
Do you think with Common Core testing, they will get the results
No.
sooner?
We're ever hopeful.
Aren't they
Don't
doing
bet
Common-
on it.
Are they doing Common Core in April or May? They're not going to be doing it in October, though.
No.
They are doing it, yes, they'll be doing it at the end of the year.
Right, so
Right.
it's much, that way, a couple things, like, I don't think that, like, sometimes staff, it's hard to own, because the kids are all spread out the next year, so it's hard for a teacher to, to own those results, because your kids are more spread out the following year, so it's, it's going to be...
They're not doing Common Core in this school year, though.
The park, we are field testing the park
You're
test.
field testing.
We're field
Okay.
testing the
Doesn't
park
count till
test.
15.
Right.
Right.
I thought it was
Right.
2015.
Now, the
Right, yeah, that's when it counts.
Turnaround with NWEA, is that 2 days, 48 hours time thing?
No, NWEA is approximately 1 hour long, and it's all online, and it's adaptive. So when students take NECAP, if you're reading at a second grade level and you're in third grade, you would have difficulty, and chances are,
No, I want to know when the teacher gets the results.
oh, right then.
away. See,
That-
see,
yeah.
NWEA is...
They can look at the
institutional.
screen.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes,
it doesn't-
immediate.
Doesn't go up to the state or
Right.
anything else.
The kids themselves, they're almost competing with themselves.
In
Yeah, because I
NWEA.
know the
Right.
young lady
Yeah.
I mentioned, she had said that she remembers exactly what your scores were. And
Absolutely.
she'll tell me, she said, I'm doing better each time.
That's right,
So
yes.
that's
yeah.
an interesting
And it
effect.
adjusts, so if you
Yeah.
get one question wrong, it'll back up to an easier question. So you're having success, and it gives us a very accurate reading of where you are in relationship to your peers. So, and then the Rhode Island growth model, which is again aligned to the kneecap tests, but that gives us information on individual students from year to year. And again, that measures that growth. So you may have a student who is a 2, and maybe the next year he's still a 2, but he has made significant growth.
You want to say what a 2 is?
Well, a 2 is, that's the,
Just
a 1 is substantially below, 2 is nearly met, but you have to get a 2 to graduate, so that's that 2 they talk about.
Out of 4.
Out of 4,
A 2
right.
is not great, but it gets you
Right.
over the finish line.
Right. But it's about that growth, you know. And a 4, you could get a 4, and the following year, you could have dropped back. So it's really about growth that we're looking at. Marcin? These are our new laptops at Pell, and this is an entire 4th grade
No, that's
working
okay.
on an online assessment. So, other things that students are doing at Pell and other places around Newport are the RAS Kids, which is a online program that lets them read and listen and hear themselves again, so it's a fluency practice. Reading A to Z are leveled books online, so whatever particular level that a student is reading on, there are books available in that grade at their level. Lexia Reading Core 5 is a program that is, again, an online program. They can access it anywhere, and it provides very specific instruction at that student's level. So again, it's one of those where they progress at their own pace, and
Is this content mature?
yes, reading, yep.
So if you're teaching science, but the kitty is reading below level, that's the content area would be?
Well, actually, Lexia is just a reading program.
Okay.
So, but A to Z, one nice thing about the A to Z is there's a lot of books in A to Z that align to our science curriculum. So, Reflex Math, which is the coolest thing. It's the grant that Newport Public Ed Foundation gave us, and it is a fluency program that students just practice their math fluency. Whatever, if you're in 3rd grade and you're still on your addition facts, that's where you're going to be and move through. If you're in 2nd grade, you already know multiplication, it'll take you there. So it's a
Mr. Leary, you should be happy. This is better than rocket math.
and you know, it's interesting.
Skill drill still there.
But no, that's what this is, though.
Yeah, I know.
But this is a computer-driven.
Right. And I will say, the one thing about rocket math, which is difficult, it was timed, and a lot of students, you know, had a lot of anxiety about that as soon as they pass out the papers. So I think Reflex Math also gives back a tremendous amount of information to the teachers. It shows how many facts were mastered, where the student is, what they need to work on. Our new reading series has terrific online resources. Our math program also has online components. Those lessons are taught using the smart boards. And then our iPads. I can't even tell you how many apps we have on the iPads, because they have everything from spelling to right down to sequencing and shapes and story building, and so many applications that are really great for students with special needs that meet their needs. And it's presented on a screen that they are very familiar with. They know how to manipulate it. And
Candy Crush?
no, we don't have that. Sorry.
That's just you,
Yes.
Joeva.
Okay, 2 questions. What kind of a container are they put in for safety? you know, the iPads? Do you have like the Gorilla cases, or, I mean, have we invested in anything for safety?
You mean for them
iPads.
breaking?
Yes.
Oh, they have, yes. Actually, we looked at a couple of them. The ones that we used to have at Cranston Calvert were very cumbersome to charge, and you couldn't get the earphones in them. So actually, Osiris found one that he would give you a heart attack right now, because he would just drop it like that, and it's fine.
And so we
They're-
have those for all?
All of them, yep.
And then the second question is, what kind of theft protection do we have on them? Do you have Find My iPad or any of those kinds of things on? Can we put anything like that on there? Because I know if I were to leave my iPad here, I could, from the other room, I could tell exactly where it was.
Right, right.
Can we put anything like that on them, or is it worth it? Because, I mean, they're just so easy to, you know, take and...
We do have cases where actually iPad cards, towards the end of the day, the teacher knows that text so we do have the capability of putting iPad in some additional cards.
It is, and, I mean, I don't pay for it to put it on my iPad, but just, you know, it's just an app, a free app. I know it's something worth looking into, because you can identify wherever that, you know, that iPad is.
They do lock them up, because that's also how they charge them. So.
For what, right, but once it's
yeah.
out of the building, it's not coming back, so it's just something to consider. So,
This is actually part of the reading vocabulary that students, as they have their lesson, go up to the smart board and manipulate, you know, to reinforce what they've learned. The nice thing about these kind of small group independent work that students do, if they get it wrong, the smart board tells them it's wrong. So they're not going to keep practicing something incorrectly. So, right, and that's the same with reflex, that, you know, all right, this is actually a lesson that was in one of the fourth grades. And Park is a very manipulative
I think we can see it, Osiris.
assessment where they have to click and drag. So here's where we're starting.
So cool. That's great.
Isn't that great? And then the next slide is just a few pictures, but a couple of them I wanted to just point out. The first one is a picture of one of our preschool, no, Marcy, is that it? Oh, there we go. That's the little Tykes computer that we got from a grant in our preschool, and that works just like a computer. They can go online. This is an example of where he's modeled something up there, and you can manipulate it and show it. He's read a story about making snowflakes, and then he was able to show them on the big screen how to do it. In the library, I mean, everything is done on the smart board, or students actually checking out their own books. Again, this is the fourth grade where they're all using them. So each student has a computer in there. And more of those manipulative lessons. Here they are working on that reflex math, and you can't see it in that picture, but all the screens are different because every student is working at their own level.
Can a teacher? Yeah.
How many students can one teacher handle? They're all got different computers.
Well, that's the good part about it, because they work independently. And so the computer will let them go on if they're getting them right, and then it'll give them a second chance, and if they get it wrong a second time, it'll tell them. But it adjusts so that the next time, that will be reinforced with the student. So it's a great way to have independent work.
Conscripts and teaching. He was able to find out who was having difficulty. I was a teacher learning to who was having difficulty.
Yes, they do. And actually, they would probably set up, you didn't really see it, but in that class, there were students that were working on the smart board, some on the iPads, and then she was working individually with some of the other students, for that direct instruction. So it works
That's great.
very well.
Again, look back at last year at the same time, the technology we didn't have in the fall.
Right.
It seems to me from this demonstration that our teachers are pretty well adapted to the new technology. How necessary is it for teachers to have a web page?
Well, there's obviously, that's a communication piece, but,
But it
and
has nothing to do with instruction, does it?
it does not, no. And,
That's what you want to hear.
Yeah.
I know, it really, they're doing a great job, and Pell teachers, as you all know, came in that first
summer.
day, and it was like, taking a drink out of a fire hose. Everything just was thrown at them. And I think they did an amazing job ramping up to the smart boards, the new reading series, which was being unpacked the day that they moved in. So, while I would love to see them use the web page a little more, right now it's a time thing. And I think in the future, it could be something that they work on. Yes.
To answer some of our public criticism, is there, say, one way you could say, chart the growth, say, class, show that there has been growth in that class over time, so that we can have some documentation this is working.
We do that every day, every year. We do a variety of assessments, and that data is collected. Teachers, the data team looks at it, they make recommendations. And individual students, if we're concerned about them not making growth, there is that response to intervention.
I'm not looking for us. I'd like to see a classroom, 24 kids, where you just be able to show, as we go through the calendar year, that curve is going up, just to quell some of the criticism that the teachers don't know how to use it. And we can show that there's growth. It seems to me that we've answered the question that it is. That's what I'd like to see. You understand what I'm saying?
I do, and it would just be a matter of taking the data we have and putting it into a chart. That's, yeah, we can do that.
Can this, with your presentation, this can be, or is it already on the website?
We can put it on our
Put it on
webpage,
the
can we
website
not?
and then let certain
We'll
individuals know.
we'll put it on the website,
Yeah,
Mr. Rembas, and then we will let everyone know it's
Yeah,
on the
that's right
website.
there. That way it's,
Truth to tell, you can go chasing
You're
in
never gonna
circles,
satisfy
trying to
I know.
address everyone's criticism of everything.
I know, and it
choose.
just gets to be-
I personally choose not to do that.
Yeah.
But I think we've shown consistently over the past 8 years that our students have made improvements. And students who come to school every day with substantial odds stacked against them. Nonetheless, we beat the odds in relationship to other communities similar to Newport. So I don't think we should be overly concerned with some of these unfair criticisms.
Well, I'll change it then, just so that you get rid of the word outside criticism. I would like to see, because I've read in some cases some pros and cons about the use of technology, and I'd like to have documentation that putting the technology has resulted in a growth curve. Those kids.
Well, I think just from a research standpoint, I don't think we could say that the technology would be,
Well, I understand that. I understand that, but at least it's not going downhill.
Oh, no. But they have a lot of other interventions that really, there's nothing more important in improving student achievement than the teachers.
Well, okay.
And so,
I don't care how you do
yeah.
it, but just give me the documentation that we have improved. That's all I ask.
Yeah.
Forget about outside criticism. We have that information, we're going to be a lot more footing to talk about things and advocate.
Yes.
We have, I think this is the second year we've had an end-of-the-year brag book, so to speak.
Right.
Maybe those charts could be added to that book, somehow showing where we were a year ago and where we are now in different areas.
Charlie, technology in and of itself is not a panacea.
Jack, I understand that.
Right,
I mean, I'm not
and-
born yesterday. I understand it, but we also have been here I've been here for 8 years. We've heard reported, you guys aren't making a difference. I don't care who you, but you heard that complaint. You look at our kneecap scores, you look at the dropout rate, maybe some people are right, maybe we haven't made a much of an impact. But I think we are, and all I'd like to see is the documentation that we're making that progress.
I don't know if you've had the opportunity to go on to the public site for the kneecap scores.
Lots of times.
Okay, well, there is what they call the growth model. And if you log into that, a kind of a very easy visual is to bring up last
I understand,
year's.
but look at kneecap and stuff, 6 months behind, 8 months behind. I'm looking for a short term, 6 months, something like that. So go with that, yeah.
Well, we can do that. We collect the data at the end of every
I'm
quarter.
sure you can.
So-
That's what I'm paraphrasing it.
Yeah.
It's not because of some individuals criticize. It's just that we have heard, and you can't argue with the facts that the dropout rate is 20%. When you look at a lot of the kneecap scores, they're very flat year to year. So, just like documentation that we are making. I think you are making. I'd like to see.
Yeah, and that growth model, if you click on last year and this year, you can see those.
I understand that, but
Yeah.
I'm not interested in kneecaps. It's
All right.
too-
Well,
it's fixed.
you mentioned they were flat, so I think we are making improvements there as well. But we'll definitely give you all the assessments, because we do them in math from the curriculum assessments and show you a graph of by grades.
I want to thank you for that, because, I mean, some of that stuff, I've been out of the school department for a while, so I'm not up on a lot of that stuff. But going to Dr. Schmick's point, people ask me questions on the street, and I look at them as questions. I'm not looking at it as a criticism. They can ask questions about this, that, and everything else, and then I have to have an answer for that. And if I don't know the answer, I call the superintendent, or I come see you, I get other people, and I go back and I give them the answer to the question. And some of the things we may be able to do, and some of the things we may not be able to do, and with certain demographics and everything else, we may never be able to get the attendance rate beyond a certain level, because that's just not going to happen. I mean, when you start pushing against the ceiling, it gets really hard. Yeah, when you got a big gap, it's easy enough to pull some of that stuff up. But when you get really good at some of the stuff, you're going to just keep hitting the wall. But I'm not afraid of people asking questions. I know where some of this came from, that people asked questions and they made innuendos, but I just take that aside. So listen, they're entitled to ask the question, and we as a school committee, whether it's Mr. Leary asking financial questions or somebody else asking stuff, we need to ask those questions to the people that do this stuff every day, and then we need to be able to go back to them and say, here's what we know. And that's, so it's not I don't take it as a criticism. I take it as people want to know where the money's going, how it gets spent. That's fair, and I'm more than happy to tell them. They may not like my answer at times, because sometimes I'm not going to agree with where they want me to go, but they're certainly entitled to ask the question. I'm glad that you made this presentation, and I hope that a lot of the people out there, that as we go forward and try to raise money to put technology in that building, go on and take a look and see all the good things that are going on out there. Because I know when I've taken people through the Pell School and walk them through those classrooms, and they see the kids and they see the teachers, they go, oh, wow. I mean, and these are people who are supporting the school. I've taken Mayor Gordon through and some other people through who, you would think they'd seen it. And when they see it, they're very impressed with it. The school sells itself. It's a lot easier than trying to sell the concept of standing in front of, Cary School trying to get a bond issue passed. When people actually get to walk in that building and see the stuff that's going on, they come away feeling pretty good about it. And when they see that maybe it got done on time and that we didn't spend all the money, they feel even better about it. Especially a guy like Mr. Leary.
Yeah, absolutely. Just segue to a good question, Dr. Chairman, if I can get the floor for a second.
Yeah.
Thank you. Quick question. You just said about raising $1 million. I read different districts and places. It might be for Osiris or Jack or you, whatever the answer is. Technology changes so much and so quick, and I'm probably the least of all the people here that use it, but it changes so fast. Why would we invest $1 million? Maybe some districts take that money, put it aside, and then take money out of it and buy things with it as things go along, instead of spending $1 million on something and 2 years later it's gone.
We're not proposing to
not.
spend $1 million.
No.
We're proposing to
We're doing
put together
exactly
a
what you
trust
said.
fund that would have money there so that in the future, when there are things that need to when technology changes, there's some money that can be drawn off of to replace that technology. This
So
is
that-
not about spending $1 million on technology.
So why are we buying some of this stuff and not renting it?
That's an administrative question.
Because, I always remember Thompson thing, it was the biggest deal to get that building wired, $1 million, the money raised, and 3 years later, wireless came in. It was all just walking in and the wireless, I think it was setting up wireless for it. So, it just changes so fast. And look at the iPads. I know I see Mrs. Boland's next to me for a few years, and it's just in 3 years or 2 years, it's changed dramatically. And so we're buying all these iPads, which I'm not against. Let me be clear about that, But, 2 years from now, they're going to be saying that's useless. You just spend.
It's like buying or leasing a car. You have to do the analysis as to which is more cost effective. And Osiris did the analysis. It was more cost effective to purchase some of these things than
So could you speak to
to
that
purchase
on
them
public?
rather than rent them.
Could you come up and speak to that?
I don't know if he's prepared to do
Okay,
that.
all right,
now.
well, then next
That's-
meeting, because there's people out there that's about to ask you questions. Why don't you do this another way?
Yeah.
Why don't you put the pot of money aside, and then every year call the company up and lease, 50 iPads, and 50 next year, 50 the following year.
Again, this is Newport. Anytime you do X, somebody wants you to do Y, and I understand that. And to go back to the reason that we had this presentation today, it was as a result of a direct criticism that the Pell School wasn't being utilized in terms of technology.
Well, I want to say that there was a question raised and there was an inference made that because a certain thing wasn't in place, that the teachers weren't being trained,
Correct.
that all these other things
Correct.
weren't happening.
Correct.
And so the only way to find that out is to ask the administration, and the administration comes forward like they did today and say,
That's
"Listen,
right.
that's not true. All this stuff is happening, but the people don't know what goes on in that school. They drive by the school. It's easy to say that, but when you bring them in and see it, or you answer the questions, then everybody knows the answer to the question."
I would like to add, though, that, I don't want to leave here with giving the impression that teachers don't need more professional development or don't need to continually
Always
learn.
need it.
And they're asking all the time because, as Mr. Leary said, new things come out all the time, not just in the hardware, but in the software or in, administration, in the norms that they give us for some of the assessment information. So we're trying to keep up with the professional development for the teachers as well. And just as on the committee here, we have a variety of technology skill levels, that happens everywhere. So, I offered one teacher at Pell a private tutor on something that was taking her a long time to do that other teachers had already completed, putting student information in. So, we're addressing that, and of that 300,000 left over, if you want to buy more technology, I could give you some ideas.
We don't know what we have for that yet, so let's take a deep breath.
It's a budget question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that, part of what that person, addressed was that websites, there weren't many websites, so, and that was something that at the high school, a few years ago was something that was an issue. And most teachers up there now have gone to websites where kids can go and look at assignments and look at, referencing. So I think, that's maybe something that, and I know that in all the things that they have to do, that just one more really.
Wasn't a priority.
wasn't a
Right.
priority, but at some point down the road, it's something that we should be encouraging, I think, and maybe, like have to do professional development on, for those that need it, because as you said, there's absolutely different skill sets, and this is an ongoing process, to keep teachers up to
Right.
date on.
And, a few years ago, when that website did come out, actually Marcy did a workshop after school for any teachers that were interested. But that was when we were in individual schools. And of course, coming to Pell, their priorities were about getting ready for the kids, so.
And the priorities were for the kids' instruction and data collection, and that's what they've been doing, and doing it well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moves us down to item 7.3, shared services between Middletown and Newport.
This was a direction that the school committee asked to be explored. I think we had one meeting with Dr. Shoemaker and Mrs. Gaines and two folks from Middletown and the superintendent from Middletown and myself. They had asked to have some next steps, specifically facilities and the high school. It took a long time, and I've been asked again what's happening with this, so we met a week ago Monday at my office. The high school, we talked briefly about how we could do some distance learning type things between the two high schools. The problem is the bell schedules don't coincide, so it becomes very, very difficult to have Skype back and forth, so we would have to do something with that. But we did come to the understanding that both Middletown and Newport were in need of a school to career counselor. So we talked about sharing that person and going out to one of our community partners to hire someone to work with Middletown and Newport. We have a job description. We've shared that with Middletown. I think that Middletown High School principal has reached out to Child and Family Services to see whether or not they can find anybody. The second and more controversial is the meeting with the facilities director. There has been discussion about sharing facility service with the city, and that was the direction we were going down for a long, long time, and then this came up, and the committee said, we'll take a look at this as well. So we met, we developed a list of possible benefits, which are attached to the memo, and I think that the committee needs to make some decisions in terms of next steps in the area of facilities management. In a perfect world, I think Middletown and Newport school departments should merge entirely. I think that makes sense. One superintendent, one central office, one high school, two middle schools, et cetera, et cetera. But we tried that once, Charlie, and it didn't work too well. However, a possible first step is to combine the facilities department. Again, there are some benefits that you see attached to this. I'm sure that you will have ongoing discussions with the city to ascertain whether or not there's any better benefit to working with the city in this regard. But if you want to begin to take a look at merging the back end of the school department's business, it's something that you can consider.
So I am dead set against that, not against combining, as Dr. Ambrosi said, we look at combining one school system, but I think that's a slap in the face to the city to not combine with the city maintenance department. And I also say that before you do this in Middletown just had a charter review in 2011. And in 2012, on a 60 to 40% vote, it passed. And I'll read the one sentence that passed. It says to provide that the council has the power to merge common duties, functions, and/or services of any of two or more agencies or departments of the town, which means Middletown could say, we're taking over the maintenance department, and we'll combine them all. So now are we dealing with the school department, or are we dealing with Middletown maintenance department? So why not deal with our own maintenance department and let them look at it? Because this can be done by Middletown, and when they can combine anything they want. It was passed by the voters in 2012, and we're having a charter review right now, and I'm sure they're looking at doing something the same. They don't need approval of the school committee. They don't need approval of anybody. They can walk in tomorrow and say, we're taking over your maintenance, you're going to go this way. So we're trying to combine with school department that may be taken over by the town.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
I guess I see this in a little bit different light, because, first of all, I think that if we're talking about trying to combine services with Middletown, that's been a conversation, people want us to look at that. This is kind of a logical place to start. I understand, Mr. Leary's position about going with the city. However, the city doesn't have somebody who's going to do this job. So however it works out, there's going to be a position that's going to be hired in the city of Newport to do this activity. If we go to Middletown, we're going to pay half of that cost. They'd be paying half of that cost. We're purchasing a service from them. So we actually end up saving money and getting the same service that we'd get from our perspective at a reduced rate, and from their perspective it's a reduced rate because they're having the salary with us. The other part I see about this is, we do it for a year. If it doesn't work, we can undo this. This isn't like a lifetime commitment that we go down this road. It would be almost like if we privatize this, so we're going to go out to some company and hire them to do our maintenance. If we don't like them, we have a year contract, we can change that at the end of the year. This is not a lifetime sentence. So there's two issues for me. One is that this is something we can do, that we can give it a shot. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. The other part is it's going to end up, in my estimation, saving us money, which I think has been, one of the goals of this school committee is to try to save money and not cut back on services. So I think we'd get the same level of services for, and I'm going to say a reduced rate, because we're going to share the cost of them. If we do it with the city, there's going to be no shared savings for the taxpayers in Newport. They're going to pay the same amount of money for the service. There's no cost savings to that. So I say, look, as a taxpayer, I'd like to save some money. I'd like to get the service, and it also gets us going down the road that we've been talking about, is doing some kind of shared services. And I heard over and over again when I ran for school committee, we'd like to see you do some kind of regionalization, we'd like to see some shared services with the other community. Why can't you do that? It strikes me as interesting that when we have the conversation about the school department and putting services together, that there's never the conversation about, let's combine the police departments, the fire departments, because, we're all going to grab our hearts and drop on the floor, because we can't do that one. So here we are with the school department. It's kind of a simple task. In my estimation, we can try it for a year. If it doesn't work, we can undo it. It's not a lifetime sentence. So, I see it away as saving money for the taxpayers in Newport. I see it as getting a benefit to Middletown and Newport. Both benefit from this. And now that we're down to 3 buildings, it's not like we have all these other little places they have to run. It becomes much more of a manageable task.
Mr. Chairman, if I can correct one thing that he said, there is a substantial savings. If you go to Middletown, you're talking over $100,000 salary and benefits for that position. If you're taking
What position?
director of maintenance that we have now. So if we you split it, it's going to be $50,000. If we go to City of Newport, we're saving the whole $100,000 because they're not creating a position, and we'd be saving $100,000 versus $50 if you're splitting it. So I think it's a substantial savings. Plus, Middletown can do what they want. As I said, it's passed the last voting election.
Well, the only thing I would correct on that is I think that Newport is contemplating hiring somebody to do that job.
That'd be their problem. It wouldn't be our problem. We'd save
No, it's the
$100,000.
taxpayers' problem, and I'm trying to save the taxpayers money and get us the same services. It doesn't save the taxpayers of Newport money to hire that position. If we can get that position for half of the price, it saves the taxpayers of Newport money, whether it's on the city side or the school department side. It saves the taxpayers money, and we get the service.
According to the plan they presented to us before, it does not have a position being created. So, according to what they had.
Dr. Flower?
Think for a minute, this, what you just said, kind of overriding what I was going to say before. If you have, say, director of maintenance, and first of all, if you want to look at common concerns, Middletown schools, Newport schools have much more in common than Newport schools and the city of Newport and municipal side in terms of who you're serving, the whole curriculum and everything. But say you have a director of maintenance getting X dollars in Newport now, and someone in Middletown getting X dollars. Do you really think a director of anything is going to work for that same amount with twice as much? That's just something that has to be worked out. As Dr. Power said, it can be piloted. We do that all the time in other programs. We could try it, we could work at it, but I think from what I've gathered, looking at trying to collaborate, if you will, with the city of Newport, with the municipal side, has not gotten beyond much of the talking stages, except for some of the obvious, some purchasing and things of that type. Because it's not so much been efficiency. My opinion, it's been a control issue, where I think working schools and school systems with the school system, it is probably more of a collaboration and a cooperation, keeping in mind that school systems are a different animal. You have to show me that. School systems are a different animal from running the city. We were talking about this the other day. We answer to the Department of Ed, the legislature. To the legislature, where the municipals, obviously, they have to be in line with certain rules and regs also. It's just different, that's all. It's something that is high time that we sat down, just like you said, we were saying also, that it's more of a conversation and just looking at the cost-benefit analysis. And cost is not always the dollar signs either. It's what is going to be best for the students. And we have to keep saying that every time we decide to talk.
So this was just to follow up on what I was asked to do. So you have the report from my meeting with Rosemary Craig. And in a perfect world, we keep Paul Fay, because he does a marvelous job.
But I'm going to say this. It's a time that the school department stops talking, school committee stops talking about some of these things, and we take an action one way or the other, whether it goes to this way or that way. You know what my feelings are on it. I think we should give it a shot. I think it's time to jump out of the plane. Let's do it. We got a parachute. It's correctable. It's not going to end the world. I'll be the first one to say that if I'm wrong and it doesn't turn out that way, I'll be saying, Mr. Leary was right. I'll be happy to say that publicly if I'm going down the wrong road. I don't think I am, but I'm certainly willing to admit my mistakes if I make them. But I don't think it's a big deal. But I think we need to start making some actions, taking some actions, and doing some things, or stop talking.
Well, we're at the very first meetings, I gotta say, we talked to Rosemary Craig. We need a job description. What are we sharing? Are we sharing just the director? Are we sharing the whole departments? We don't. We're just talking about one position that we need a price, and we need to know whether they have the capability of doing it. Because we're all talking different apples and pears and peaches, putting them all together and comparing them. But we need to know, we need a clear definition as to what we want to share. And so far, we haven't done that. I think we need to sit down and make a very clear statement what we want to share.
I think the concept is that we would share the director, we would split the director's salary. The director's salary would probably be, with everything, including benefits, about $120,000. You divide that in half and it would be $60,000. That was my understanding of the discussions. Now,
but we need to have the comparison with the city now.
Right, that's the problem. There is no comparison with what the city said that they would do, because I don't even think that there was a major discussion between Mr. Riccio and Mr. Fagan with regard to that. Am I right, Mr. Fagan?
Something's going to have to be carried over to January.
Oh yeah, there's no question about it. I don't
need to consult the city.
I don't think that you've had I don't think that there has been a real understanding as to what the city was going to do or provide. I think that's the issue. Now you've asked me with Mr. Fagan to go to find out what Middletown would provide. You have what they think would be some of the benefits. We have not had other meetings with the city manager or the city officials to ascertain what they had in mind. I've heard that they're going to have to hire another person because they don't have the capability to monitor. But I don't know that because no one said that directly to me, Bobby. So somebody's going to have to say up front, how is this going to work? The other thing is, I understand you brought that up. This is the first time I've heard about that. I think that needs to be.
60 to 40% of it's passed by the voters. We're having a charter review, and that's going to come up again in Newport.
Bobby, I get that, but that was never brought to our attention when we had the meeting. So that's another thing that needs to be discussed. Okay?
That would be problematic.
Yes,
So
it would.
that's what I'm.
Absolutely be problematic.
And that's what I'm saying to you today. Never discussed. Okay. So at the end of the day, there are some things that I'm going to have to kick the can down the road. And I told Colleen that this would be a can that she would have to kick or grab hold of. So this is something that does need to be discussed and decided relatively quickly because my assistant superintendent, Mr. Fagan, will be resigning for retirement purposes in June 30th. Although no one can fill his shoes, somebody's going to have to attempt to take care of some of the functions that he provides. Okay.
Got to use those vacation
Next
days.
item is budget freeze.
Yeah, Bob put this on the agenda. Unfortunately, this lasted a whole lot longer than I thought it was going to last. Joan Tracy told me she had to leave at 4:30. I looked up. Joan Tracy is not here. Obviously, non-essential items that come to me, I'm going to defer on until Colleen has the opportunity to come to take a look at things. But right now the major purchases have already been done. So I don't know what types of things we would freeze, but they come to my level, and I take a look at them in terms of cost factors.
I think it's a good idea to give her a chance to see where the bodies are buried.
Yeah. So nothing big is going to be approved over the Christmas time. People just don't do that, okay?
What do you know about, I don't know about Mrs. Gaines. Bodies are buried, I'm not part of this.
So, Dr.
There are no
Chairman.
bodies buried, so the folks out there know.
It's just a phrase.
Okay.
Please,
Nothing
don't
more
So,
crazy than to tell you how many
So are we going to put this back on the agenda for January? Is that the point now, I guess?
Well,
Freeze the budget.
so you'll know, any big-ticket items that are non-essential,
Right.
they come to my office under the what's the name of that, Lawson system, okay?
So-
Those are the things that I know. So obviously, Colleen will have the opportunity to take a look at that and make a determination as to what kind of freeze it will be. Will it be a hard freeze? Will it be a freeze of only very essential items? I mean, there's some things that you can't freeze ever because they're toners, they're paper, they're those
Toilet
types
paper.
of things. So there's some things that you can't freeze. So as I spoke with Joan earlier, we'll take a look at the non-essential, and I'll talk to Colleen. She's coming in again tomorrow, and we'll have that discussion again with her on that.
All right, so if we can put it back on the agenda for January, I appreciate it.
Sure.
One of the things, for example, just like you mentioned, non-fees, we have $4,000 in the budget for catering. I think at some point we need to look at that, I mean, there's a lot of little things in here you can mention. In essence, since she's not being here, in essence of time, I'm not going through it, but I think we need to take a serious look at that, all these little items in here. If we're going to ask the public for money and sit here and do things like that, I think it's a slap in the face to them again. So, yeah, we should put it back on for January. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Go on to report from the superintendent staff expenditure.
Again, Joan was here, she's not here. You have the expenditure and revenue reports in front of you. we still are projecting a deficit. I don't think she included the lack of revenue for the Career and Tech Center. I don't know whether or not that has not yet been adjusted there, but it's been adjusted, it's been adjusted under the expected, so it has been adjusted under the expected rather than the budgeted. So right now, it appears as though we're $569,514 short as of Monday or whenever. Yeah.
Well, Mr. Chairman, obviously, he's not here. I had a couple of questions for her, but we can relay them to her. So what I want to do is get a detailed report of all the revenues, and particularly the trust fund income. We have that as being $90,000 short. I went and checked with the city. For the last 3 years, they've been issued in March, and April. The money has been issued before the budget year, not doubled up. So it may be right, it may be wrong. I'm not saying it is, but if we get a detailed report from, as I look at budget's the best way, of all the revenues. So in the trust fund, we get money from Bank US, we get money from other companies from other trusts. So we just need to look at all that and see how much that is, and see if it is down $90,000 or not.
Sure, we can do that, and there are a lot of different, there are a lot of different pots of money for these trust funds. Some are restricted, some are general, so I'll ask her.
Right.
I'll ask her.
Let's get a copy of all.
Yeah. I'll ask her,
They're all on
Wendy.
different lines, aren't they, in that?
Yeah,
but they're all in different lines.
Some are that, and some are outside the budget. Okay.
So my other thing is that I think it's been, and I'm not speaking for the committee, the will of the committee at some point is to wait to see what happens with this money for the city. See if they're going to give us the 600, it was 300, then 400, now $600,000. We have some money to deal with. I think that we have to talk about. I mean, Dr. Ambrogi's idea in the beginning was to take money out of the retirement fund that we put into it a few years ago.
Right, but then the city would put it back in.
Right, so that's the
At the
thing we
end.
can look at still. And we also have, you mentioned tonight, we got $384,000 in the contingency fund, and we have $300,000 of money we transferred into that money. So we have almost $700,000 at Pell sitting over there, that we can.
Again, we're not sure.
Correct.
Right.
I totally understand. I'm just saying, yeah.
The building is not signed off yet.
I totally understand, but I'm saying there's money on the table right now of $700,000 almost at Pell. And so we need to look at that as we go on. I don't think the city's going to do anything until they
We
get.
can't use that money for our general purposes.
Not
Well,
the bond,
that
not
would be
the
the
bond,
city's
not the
choice.
bond.
Not the
Yes.
bond, but the other $300,000 we could, because we
For-
transferred that money into that.
But-
We transferred
That was
$400,000.
our
it-
money.
But that
for
would have to be for capital
capital
stuff, Bob.
That
Right,
was-
Right, but it doesn't have to be. You're right.
That was capital improvement money,
Correct.
and I don't think we should take it and use it for general purposes.
No, I'm not.
We still have buildings that need attention.
I didn't
Yeah.
even vote to put it in there, but I'm saying you have that money in there, and it has been done in the past,
You might have it, but again, that's why I was trying, Bob, as you well know, trying to get this
Yep.
project done under my watch,
Yep.
so we would be able to determine how much money was left from the bond, how much money was left from the $419,000 that was originally established for the project. So I can't give you that answer now. But I will tell you in the next couple of weeks, I'll try and get as much of that information as I can. As I had mentioned to you before, I've been asking Joan to meet with the city folks, because I want to take a look at their records as to what they think that they've charged against the bond, and then I want to have that coordinated with Jim Farrar's information that he gives to make sure we're sure where we are. I want to get a call
My
to Sarah.
my understanding that the capital money that you put aside, because I wasn't here, but
That
put
was our
aside,
capital money.
capital money, is that money that could be available to fix the triplet school roof?
Yes.
It could be, but again, you don't know if
No,
you have it.
I'm just asking the question whether or not
Yes.
It-
that's something that
That-
could
That's
be used.
capital
That's all I'm
improvement.
asking,
So-
whether it does or not,
Yeah,
is a different
yeah.
story.
Yeah,
Well,
that-
put that for a discussion item, at some point, maybe, Jim, 'cause I'm not a fan of fixing that. We need 70% of these roofs in Rochester
No,
to be fixed.
I'm just asking the question
First.
whether or not that is an allowable use of that money. That's
Yes.
my question.
Good.
Short answer, yes.
For that money, you can utilize it for triplet, you can use it for
You can use
any capital improvement.
In the past, maybe Neil can prove this, maybe we see him after this, that's why Thompson went to hell in plain language. They took the money from the capital improvement and used it for general items, okay?
Now,
So you can
I-
use it any way you want.
I
You
said,
can just allocate the money, just like you transfer one line item to another. If you allocate so much money for one line item, and you say, oh, we need $10,000, you take it out of another one, you can use it. So you can use that money the way you want.
I say again though, and don't forget, we still have $164,000 in the Thompson Fund.
Right.
Which can only be utilized for Thompson.
That's separate.
So.
Yep.
Okay, just want to make sure. So those are the cap, and there's some housing aid that evidently has come in to the tune of maybe 130, but I'm finding out more about that. It's a reimbursement that we got from the state for past expenditures. Yeah, right. Okay, and the enrollment reports, you have before you, and they're fairly self-explanatory. Superintendent's update is listed or presented or whatever. So,
And the damage, no damage?
no damage,
I
except
move-
for the geese.
I move we accept the reports as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Want to change?
Yeah,
Motion, you want to make a motion to adjust the agenda?
so move.
Second.
Second.
Can you put that on autopilot?
We were gonna give you a gold watch,
You were.
but you have trouble with the time, you know, coming in,
Yeah, thank you.
obviously, like this meeting.
You know, they're torturing me even at the last meeting. You understand that. I mean, my wife sees what I put up with every month. Right now, dear? Now you know why I don't want to watch the tape again.
Anyway, on those cold Sarasota nights, here's some entertainment for you.
Thank you, David.
I call that the many faces of Jack and
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I would like to personally thank Dr. Ambrogi. I know I'm going to stick my comments to finances, because everybody knows me, it's all about finances. And for the past 7 years, I'm very proud of this, under his leadership, we have not increased the taxes of Newport from the school department. Not 1 cent. In fact, it's been lowered. We've less than $500,000. So anybody comes up to me and says anything, I always say to them, point blank, your taxes have been increased by, I don't know what the number is, I won't say numbers about having it in front of me, over the past 7 years, but not 1 cent of that has come from the school department. We've had less allocations in the last 7 years under his leadership, and we've run this business as it is, and I'm very proud of that. I'm not speaking for anybody else in the school committee, they have different opinions, I'm sure, but to me, I'm very proud of his leadership of that, of 7 years of less taxes in Newport for the people. You know, and I appreciate that, thank you.
How come my taxes went up?
Because the city side, city side, not the
Yeah, I
school
think
side.
that needs to be clarified, because
Yeah.
the city increased.
As I said,
The
they've been up.
taxes went up, but
Yeah,
the schools
every
didn't
year.
realize anything from the increases.
No, we've had less money from 7 years ago. So the money they gave us 7 years ago, we've had less, so it's the same amount of money. We have a tax for 7 years ago, it's less, the tax is going up, but we're getting less money from the city.
Thank you. I agree.
We have an issue.
I agree with you on that.
Providing more for the
We have an issue that requires the executive committee, so that's why I want to make, Kate, you want to read the motion?
Can I say something before that? I'm new to the committee, but I'm not new to Jack. Jack and I go back, way, way back. And, he had his retirement party and, you know Jack, you know Mary, and I just want to say one thing that people may or may not know, well, I know they don't know this, but when we first came to Newport, we went down to the 40 steps, the iconic 40 steps, and Jack and Mary say, we're going to go down the bottom of the steps and look at the ocean. And I stay at the top. And the wave comes and gets them wet, and they come back up, and Mary looks at me and goes, you know what's going to happen, didn't you? I go, yeah. Welcome to Newport. But it didn't stop me from moving here.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful that you guys came and did what you did.
Thank you, Bob.
May I?
Yes.
I can hardly say anything without laughing, so I won't look at you. Thank you. Thank you for what you've done for us in the last 8 years. It has not always been smooth. It has not always been easy. But I think the main thing, the reason I ran for school committee in the first place 14 years ago was to find a way to use what revenues we have in a way that would benefit the kids more than using $500,000 a year for brick and mortar. We accomplished that by building the Pell School. And it was 10 years of hard work, knuckle-busting decisions. And I don't know if we could have done that if we didn't have anybody as hard-nosed as you are. And I say that lovingly.
Sure.
So thank you for all you've done. And have a good retirement.
Let me just add, I met Jack when he came in and handed him the Berkshire report. 32 items. And it took him till October to really generate all the answers to it. But we did generate those answers, and I think we addressed most of those concerns. The other thing I would just like to comment on is your professionalism. You see a lot of school committee meetings where people are dressed casually. You always come in with a suit and tie. And you're always there, and you always treat us with respect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charlie. Now do I, unless Sandy has something to say, or Becky, I'd like to say.
Well, I'd like to say that I think I surprised you one day when I said that I was glad to see a superintendent going into the schools. And I think you said, you say that all the time. I said, hey, I was in the system for 30 years, and like I saw 2 showing up very, very briefly and couldn't get out quickly enough. And it does mean a lot to the professionals, to the educators, paras, administrators, that you have someone who is hands-on. We didn't agree all the time, but I always knew that if I had a question, I could, speak to Jack, and I don't think he was quite sure what to expect from me when I first came on board, but I think some of our common heritage came through a few times.
Talking with your hands, is that?
Yeah, I've enjoyed every minute of it, really, and have a wonderful retirement. There may be an opening on the school committee sometime.
No.
No, okay.
That would not happen.
Yeah, you never know. You never know.
Okay, being the last one, it's an anchor person here, but I'll just say that, that over every year we've been here, Jack cares more about the people that work for him. He's been so good to the employee, really, in terms of making exceptions, trying to do what's best for sometimes, like special circumstances. And more important than that, I've seen him take on a few kids in his district, take a special interest in them, and help to improve their lives. And, it's, I can think of a couple in particular, and it's just really special that you did that.
Thank you. And I get to be the last one, hopefully, since this will be my last public comment as a superintendent. No special meetings, please. My last public comment as the superintendent of the Newport Public Schools. First, let me thank the school committee that hired me and the school committee that I've worked with over the past 8 years for the opportunity to serve the kids who attend the Newport Public Schools. This is a mission for me, and it's been a mission that I've had for the past 40 years. It is all about the kids, and it should always be all about the kids. And when I've been cost effective, I've done so in a way that I've hoped has not negatively impacted on program. I think you can do both. I know that people think I'm relatively direct. I can't help that. It is my personality. But I've enjoyed working here with the school committee, with an excellent professional staff and support staff. And I thank my lovely bride who is in the audience. She and my assistant superintendent and Wendy, they're still in the audience now. And Mary, you've heard all the stories, and at some point in time, I would have gone screaming off of Quinnipiac Island had you not been there to listen. So thank everybody, and I'm sure I'll give my best to Colleen Germain. I think she'll make an excellent superintendent, and give her any support that I can in this transition. So thanks again.
Do we have your phone number in Florida?
No, I'm getting an unlisted phone number. Actually, I'll give it to some people. Paul tells me the first time it snows, he knows what my cell phone number will be. He's going to call me anyhow, just to let me know, for old time's sake.
I'll put you on the robocall.
Yeah, 5 o'clock, right, Paul? So thank you, and I know we've got executive session.
Oh, I just closed. Just closed the door. You didn't vote yet.
Give me it.
I have to read it first. The school committee seeks to convene in closed session under jurisdiction of Rhode Island State Law 46, 42, 46-5. Exceptions A and 1, personnel matters. A2, collective bargaining and litigation.
I move that we go into closed session. Second. Yes, it's second, you move first.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I won't be too long. Yep.
Stay here. Nobody else is in the building.
No, it's somebody wanted to discuss it.